My upcoming novel, Jaw of the Dragon, was inspired by No More Heroes. I am the biggest No More Heroes fan on the planet, right? I have like a Harmon Smith profile pic. I also like Killer 7. I'm a big fan of like Suda's really good works, right? And so, like, let me be the first to tell you, okay? The absolute first to tell you that 4chan is full of shit when they do this thing where they try to say that like No More Heroes 3 was bad and that like Travis Strikes Again was better, or more specifically, the thing they do where they pretend they always like Travis Strikes Again. Because I really want to take you back to like when did it come out? Like 2018? When this thing first came out, right? Like when this came out, like No More Heroes 3 was nowhere in sight. We had no idea when it was coming out. Like Travis Strikes Again came out. It was like a low budget indie title. Like people said, what the fuck is this? Like you had Yahtzee, you had Nitro Rad, you had like all these like 4chan approved critics like shitting on this game. Like it was universally accepted, like day one, that Travis Strikes Again was a pile of shit. However, there were individuals like me who like extolled the game's virtues. I talked about the story, I talked about the gameplay, I talked about the combat. I love like the versatility of like, the chipset and like all the cool things you could do. Bad Girl Returns. Like I found Travis Strikes Again to be a very refreshing Suda 51 game. Like I felt it really brought him back to his roots in making these low budget, like simplistic games that were made for dedicated a small audience, right? That's kind of always been my problem with No More Heroes and like these pop Suda games, like stuff like Lollipop Chainsaw, Shadows of the Dams, Killer is Dead. Like these games were like big budget productions that didn't even come close to like really capturing like the impact of like Killer 7 or No More Heroes, but they sold a lot more. Why? Because by that point, like Suda 51 was like regarded as like the creative visionary, like the auteur of the industry, even if he didn't have like a whole lot to do with like any of these games, or in the case of Shadow of the Dam, like really had his vision like mangled by EA and like the corporate side of things. Like, I enjoy like Shadows of the Dam, right? Like there are things I like about those like later Suda games, but there's no denying that there was a period of time in which Suda 51 was not putting out like great games. Like Travis Strikes Again to me really felt like it was his comeback period where he actually put out something that I was really excited to play, right? And so many people just shit all over him for it. Like so many people like called the game complete crap, and so many people just said it was disappointing and underwhelming and that like it shouldn't have been made and that like it was just completely terrible. No, like it was perfectly good. Like I liked Travis Strikes Again. And the thing is, this narrative continued, right, until No More Heroes 3 came out, in which like everyone did a flip-flop, in which everyone said that like Travis Strikes Again was great, that game had soul, that game had passion, and that No More Heroes 3 was disappointing. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Like these people cannot appreciate all of No More Heroes 3's qualities, right? Like I loved No More Heroes 3, like thoroughly, right? I saw it as like a massive improvement over 2, which I think is as the low point of the series. I still enjoy it, but whatever. No More Heroes 3 just has the best combat out of any of the games and just oozes style, like has great callbacks. Like it was the game I waited like a decade to play, right? It was something that I thoroughly enjoyed, right? And now, in order to gain credibility, in order to like present themselves as being like hardcore Suda fans, like the same people who like shat all over Travis Strikes Again are now trying to use that game and its positive aspects to attack No More Heroes 3. And it is something I'm getting really tired of, right? Like, why can't we just admit that like both games have problems, but they're also not bad games? Like, let's talk about the actual qualities and flaws of these games as products instead of like trying to dismiss both of them as being complete shit for like arbitrary reasons. Like, it feels like the only reason either of them were really shit on was because they're Nintendo exclusives, right? That seems to be what this is coming down to, like, really. Right. The real reason both of them were criticized so heavily was that like these were Nintendo Switch exclusives, right? Travis Takes a Game came out in like 2018, in that like weird period where like before, like when people were still trying to pretend that Switch had no games. And then like No More Heroes 3 came out in like 2021, after being delayed, and after like the lengthy announcement period. And a lot of people were like let down by it. And I don't know, there are some things that could be said for No More Heroes 3. Like, I think it should have come out in like 2013 or 2014 or whatever, like a lot sooner than it actually did. I don't think there was really a reason for us to wait this long. Like, there are, like, I think a lot of the audience who grew up with the original have like grown out of it, right? Like, most people who played No More Heroes 1 when it first came out are like, in their 40s now, like, probably. So it's like, lots of people have like aged out of this kind of thing, right? Like, the Travis Touchdown character is not relatable, right, to a lot of these players, right? Now, I found like the change of direction in No More Heroes 3 to be refreshing, and really respected it. And that's a part of like what I like about the games at this point, is just how like it does feel like the character does change and evolve as we go through these games. But like, I don't know, a lot of people like are having issues like dealing with that. Like, I'm seeing so many people complain about like, issues with like continuity or storytelling or like characterization. I see a lot of people like talk about Henry and like his, the recast voice and like the personality shift and stuff like that. Like, I think a lot of people are just really never really understood the appeal of No More Heroes to begin with. Like, it was always zany. It always didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was always just balls to the wall, like insane nonsense, right? With no clear explanation. And that's what makes it fun, right? It feels just like playing like an NES game with like no manual, with no idea like who any of these characters are, what's going on. It feels like an old school, like retro video game in that respect. And I really, really respect it for that. Right? Like, I like this quality of Suda51's work. Like, I like this. I like the angle he's taking No More Heroes. Like, I like the way this game panned out. And so much so that like No More Heroes 3 was my game of the year of 2021. Like, I was just really impressed with everything this game delivered. It disappoints me so much to see so many people like try to write it off, try to say that the game like had nothing going for it, or that it was disappointing, or that like this or that, like overworld. Like, it just comes across as if people are complaining for no reason. Like, really, it feels like a bunch of immature people who don't really like grasp just what the appeal of this series actually was, right? It just feels like people who were expecting like a serious, big, like AAA production that actually like, I don't know, resolve the trilogy or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm very happy with the way No More Heroes 3 turned out, like, personally. Like, to a certain extent, I understand where people are coming from when they say they're put off by it, but at the same time, I don't agree. Like, I really don't. And I really have to just ask, like, why are you still so angry? Like, why are you so upset that No More Heroes 3 turned out the way it did? I would really like to know.